never give up. I never give up. I never give up.
Hi guys, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today is another fantastic day because I have got quite an amazing human being with me today. I've got Adrian Knight. Adrian is a man who nowadays says, what shall I do? Got a few hours. Why don't I just run, cycle, kayak across Scotland? And next weekend, I could run across Scotland. Why not that? Or, and that's all a bit too easy. Why don't I actually participate in one of the most grueling half marathons, i.e. the Spartan race? Hey, I could do that. You know, I've got nothing else to do. Most human beings think, what the hell? And I want to know how this guy is doing it. Where is he getting this energy from? What was his drive to start even going on to such a journey? So I can't wait to talk to you. Adrian, welcome to my show.
Thanks so much, Stephan. That's quite the introduction. I'm truly honoured. Truly honoured. Thank you so much. It's wonderful.
I'm honoured to talk to you because it's always something that amazes me, where people can draw the energy from and the inspiration. And the inspiration is easy. Oh, I would like to do that. Everyone on the 1st of January is, oh, I would like to do that. I would like to be thin, large, whatever. And then 4 days later, 8 days later, 10 days later, yeah, forget it. But you are a man who keeps persevering. And I want to know, where did the journey start?
Yeah, wow. It's, I mean, what a journey it's been. So, just to set some context, in my sort of mid to late teens, I was very overweight. I was, obese, essentially, obese. And that was something that sort of crept up on me. I didn't realise I was overweight until one day I walked past a mirror and I just saw a reflection of myself, and it just stopped me in my tracks. I was like, that's not me. Like, surely that's not me. And I literally stopped and turned around and looked, and I was like, oh, it is me. And it was something that sat on my mind for. We was in Scotland, ironically, on a family vacation, and we were going out that afternoon, and it was bothering me all afternoon. And by the end of that afternoon, I made a decision, very decisive, like inner-driven decision, that I was going to lose some weight. And over the next sort of 10 to 12 months, it was just under a year, I lost all of that and completely transformed my physical appearance. And so that gave me some insight into the capabilities of what was sort of possible, I guess, with our physical bodies. And then sort of fast forward a few years, and I had not long turned 19, and a very long story short, I was having a nervous breakdown. And that was a very significant point in my life, because I was, sort of medically diagnosed with having a nervous breakdown. I wasn't sleeping. I had given all the medication known to man to take. But I remember sitting on my bed at my parents' house, and again making a conscious decision that it just didn't feel right taking the medication. I felt like there was another way, and I wanted to do it naturally, and that it would be a longer and harder journey, but it just felt like a journey for me. And so that started the journey for me. And I sort of entered into the world of endurance events. Like it's very bizarre, really, because people look at the events I'm doing now, and like they are quite extreme, and I love that. But that's not where it started. Like, it started with a half marathon, a local half marathon that I signed up for purely because my lifestyle was so out of control. I was drinking very heavily. I was smoking. I was in my early 20s, and I was at university, so it was, you kind of had a social ticket of approval for allowing to do that. But I just felt so disconnected from myself, and I wanted to do something good for myself and to get things under a bit more control. And that led me to signing up for the half marathon, which I didn't really do much training. I'd done a little bit, but I'd signed up for it, and I was a student with no money, and I paid the entrance fee. So I was determined to get get my money's worth. And I'd done the half marathon, and that was the first milestone, because what's happened ever since then was every time I've done an event, I've sort of come to the realization that, oh, if I can do a half marathon, maybe I can do a full marathon. And that's what I did next. I went on to do the London Marathon. And then after the London Marathon, I thought, oh, if I can do a full marathon, maybe I can do a triathlon. And it just kind of evolved from there, like going up through an Olympic distance triathlon, then an Ironman, and then it started moving into the more extreme stuff. But every one of those events, I was training because I was trying to keep at bay some of the inner demons. It's been, a very sort of surreal journey.
Wow. What a transformation, man. Adrian, let me be the devil's advocate, though. You were running, and you were running a long distance. Were you running away from things? Was that not just switching one maybe addiction to the other?
You've really hit the nail on the head, because I was, and this sort of running away from things manifested in other ways in my life. So I've been very blessed to travel extensively. So I've been to over 45 countries. And the first time I backpacked was around Europe. That was just before my nervous breakdown, and I can honestly say I had the best time of my life. It was just phenomenal. And so when I hit into my early 20s, and this was like post the nervous breakdown, and I was coming up against all of these personal inner demons, I like, my logical response was to go and do the thing that had given me so much freedom and joy, which was the traveling. So I was running away there, but then also, I was sort of peppering in these endurance events, which in many ways they were very therapeutic, because when you're out running for an hour, maybe even 2 hours, you're by yourself, and you don't have the distractions of life around you. And even with your own thoughts, after a certain while, they start to temper down, because you just focus on the rhythm and almost, where am I going next? Where am I going next? So it was very therapeutic, but yeah, definitely running away.
What could you figure out? What you were running away from?
I was running away from me. So I remember going through a very deep identity crisis when I was in my 20s, very deep. And you don't really hear many people talk about this. You tend to hear about midlife crisis, and that's the one everyone knows. But I believe that we go through a number of identity crises throughout our life. Like, first of all, when we're a bit younger, and in our teenage years, and again in our 20s. And I sensed that, and this all stemmed from that nervous breakdown, because it really took me down to ground zero. It broke me down in every single area of my life, and I had made the choice to deal with it naturally. So I was building myself up like brick by brick, and I didn't know who I was. I thought I knew prior to that, but I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I sensed this sort of inner potential that I believe we all have. It's all, we're all born with this, and I sensed it probably more than most, but I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know how to wield it. I didn't know what it meant. And it just, I mean, even just saying it, it feels quite heady, and it's like, oh, let's go for a run. or more commonly, I have a drink.
Exactly.
I'll have a drink, and then have another drink, and then,
And then no one ever went for a run when they're drunk. Yeah, exactly.
No, but I used to punish myself. So in the morning after, I used to get up with a hangover and go for a very, very long run to, but it was just punishment.
To really mess up the electrolytes. Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
Good man. Was that in Scotland? Was there, were you enjoying the local specialities like deep fried Mars bars and haggis with lots of chips?
Haggis and chips is it's a very fine meal. I like.
How was your nutrition around that time? I mean, we often, as a endurance athlete now, you pay attention to it. And then, as a young man, you're bulletproof, so you eat whatever you like.
And I think that was part of it, because here I was running these half marathons and marathons and doing the triathlons, but I was still drinking very heavily. I was still smoking, and I was still eating an unhealthy diet. None of that really changed. And every time I finished an event, I was like, wow, I sort of did all right there. And what could I, and this was it. It was like, what could I do if I actually had some training and took the diet more seriously and dropped some of the vices? Well, I didn't use that terminology then, but that was essentially my thinking, like, I wonder what I could do with this. And that's sort of like the other side of the coin I'm on now, is every time I do an event, I'm like, oh man, I thought that would defeat me, but it didn't. What's next? Like, push that little bit further.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And being able to push yourself further, that's actually quite intoxicating, isn't it? It is, you have achieved something, and then immediately there is the next thing there. I am in the same boat when it comes to, or when it came in the past to academia. I got one alphabet soup behind the name, and then no, let's do another one, and then another one. I remember actually passing a particular exam in the morning with the last setting of that exam. I had lunch, and then I went for the first training session for the next exam, which would be in 2-3 years' time. In other words, I never celebrated my wins. Did you celebrate them in the past, and do you celebrate them now?
I do. In the past, my way of celebrating them would be to go out with my friends and get drunk. Undoubtedly, that would be, the alcohol would have been involved. One of the things my dad taught me was, when you do have like wins, whether that's a work win or a win such as doing a marathon or whatever, getting married, when you have wins in your life, to mark it. And that could be, for example, if you've had a promotion at work, it could be going out and buying a nice pen, like a Mont Blanc pen, something that you probably wouldn't buy for yourself normally. It's definitely a bit more of a luxury, but it's just such a lovely way to mark that period in your life, or that sort of threshold that you've just crossed in your life. So I've never forgotten that. So I do make a point of marking events now, which, to be fair, normally means I'm signing up for another one. That's how I mark it. So when I completed the Arctic Circle, I marked it by signing up to do an ultra marathon running across Northern England. And so, but I try to celebrate it more, because I'm exactly the same as yourself in terms of what's next.
Exactly.
You have to stop and smell the roses.
That's good. And we need to remind ourselves. And you have got actually to. Now we come to that in a second. Now we come to it now, for crying out loud, because I look over your shoulder, and if you guys look over my shoulder here, that's the same bloody picture. And we both were laughing, because normally on my side here is my book, where are we? Here, there. My Steps to Sobriety, the old cover. And now I've changed pictures. What is this all about? Tell us, why do you have that picture over your right shoulder? Why have I had mine here on the right side, where normally no one sees it?
I mean, I was amazed when I saw it, and we were sort of joking beforehand, because you're the first person I've ever met who has one of these, and it is fantastic. So it's a poster by a business called 4,000 Weeks, And I suggest Googling this. So it's 4K weeks. And essentially the principle of it is that like the average person will live to 86 years old. And so this poster is a series of small squares that are broken down into 86 rows, and each row has 52 squares, with one square representing 1 week of your life. And when you order it online, you give your age, your date of birth, and they fill in all of the squares that you've lived up to this point in your life. And then moving forward, every week you fill in you color in another square. And I love it because it's a visual representation of your life, and more importantly, it's a visual representation of the mortality of your life. I mean, many of us would be blessed to live to 86 years old. Unfortunately, not everyone even, unfortunately makes it to that age. And it's just a visual daily reminder that we're not immortal, that we've only got one chance at this life, that we can procrastinate, we can push things back, we can do whatever, say whatever excuses under the sun, but that is not going to change. And a lot of people, when they first sort of hear that or see that, they say, "Oh, you're really morbid." And my instant response to say is, "I'm not morbid. This is the ultimate form of realism. Like, it's the ultimate form of reality, that we have limited time here, and I, for one, plan to make the most of it." And so I loved the poster. It was just one of the best things I've ever bought. It wasn't a great deal, like in terms of the value it's given, but also I like to mark key life moments on there. So I've got on there when I've done my Ironman. I've got on there when my daughter was born. Like professionally, I buy and sell. I buy, turn around and sell companies. So I have my first acquisition on there as well, and it's just such a lovely, again, visual representation of my journey. And I look at the squares, and every week they're getting one less square. I'm like, oh man, like, I need to squeeze every ounce out of this life while we can. So
Wow. And it is a very, very touchy subject the older you get. So I was amazed for you as a relatively young man to actually have that realization. For me, it started about 5 years ago when I took my son to a real estate investment seminar. So we both spent that weekend there, and we were given that, and I had never seen that before. And they asked us, "Okay, here you go, and now mark out all the time that you have already spent here." And I did, and it was getting blacker and blacker and blacker. By the end, my shoulders were sinking and my head was sinking. And my son was sitting next to me, and he saw my, I guess, distress, my realization. And he just rested his hand on my forearm, took my piece of paper, and started drawing more circles, and said, nah, that's not you, Dad." And it was such a beautiful moment that we shared there that I will never forget. But it brings home to you that, yes, of course, you could watch something on Netflix. Yes, of course, you could just dream away and let this day pass. Or you could actually think, who do I want to be when I grow up? And it doesn't matter if you're 17 or 70. Who do you want to be? Because this is actually lifespan. There's a thing called health span. And unfortunately, for many of us, that's about 10 years less. And health span means, okay, you living your life to the fullest, and then disease, comorbidities, problems with your joints, etc., stop you living, and you're becoming more maybe a vegetative kind of thing, not as extreme as let's say a brain injury, but you're certainly no longer living your life to the fullest. And that is then cutting even more of it off. Therefore, that kind of picture is so important for me to actually hone in again on what is important in my life. But it is so easy for life to intrude. Here you are preparing for the next big race, and yes, it's all good, but then life happens. What do you do when life happens?
So just to quickly touch on something you just said there, and I think you really hit home on an important point here. For me, I had a big gap between doing my last major event, which was the Ironman, and then going into my Scotland event, so going across Scotland. And what sort of instigated me to pick this back up again was I was actually seeing a therapist. I was having severe anxiety and panic attacks, like waking up at 2:30 in the morning in utter dread, and awake for like an hour and a half until I started to calm myself down. And it was a very transformational experience for me. But one thing he said to me has never left me, which he didn't go into any details because of client-patient confidentiality, but he said that he had someone once sitting in the same chair I was sitting in, and they said to him that their biggest regret was that they didn't use their body in all the ways that they could. And I'd never heard anyone say that before, because normally it's about, I wish I hadn't spent as much time as work, or I wish I'd kept connections with my friends and stuff, but I've never heard anyone say that. And I think it's such a key point, because that person, without knowing any of the details, they had more lifespan, but their health span, by the sound of it, had was seriously limited. And that is a big driver for me, because like the next event could be my last one. I don't know. And what I do know is I don't want to I don't want to look back with these big regrets. It's all about regret minimization. That's like my philosophy. I just felt it's important to say that, because I think it's such an important point that people don't talk about enough.
But I want to expand on that too, because we think, oh my God, that's all quite nice, but I am 45, 55, 65. Who am I to restart? I've lived a hard life. I've smoked, I drank. There's no chance for me. Guys, there is a huge chance for you. There's so much we can do. There's so much we can do with very simple things, like really adhering to a decent sleep hygiene, to hydration, to nutrition, to actually moving your body. There is so much data out there that we nowadays say that so many diseases could be very much prevented, or at least tragically, and not tragically, enormously modified to the better with exercise, with being out there, with living your life to the fullest. Living your life to the fullest and using your body in the way it was designed is the best panacea that you can throw in, the best thing that you can do, because there are so many diseases that we can simply eradicate. Would we move more? Would we actually just live in a different way than we are socially engineered to do? Success. You just have to keep going. Now, just another acquisition in your case, just another, maybe I can do another list in theater. And sometimes you have to do that because, life happens and money is tight and you have to kick ass. That's cool. But if you keep doing, then that one will very soon become a distant memory, and the next time you think back is when something really nasty happens to you. Man,
yeah, it's so true. And also as well, there's this big illusion that, like, take the Arctic Circle trip I done that with a small group of people who also sort of found that intriguing, but over half the group were females in their 50s, which is fantastic. Like, it's not the conception, like the preconception is that everyone will be in their 20-year-old male.
That's right, fitness instructors. Yeah.
Exactly that. And I've just turned 38, so I'm still young, but also I'm very conscious that 40 is nearly there, and everyone keeps telling me, like, surely you should be slowing down now. And I'm like, but why? Like, it's all in the mind, and it's all in the mind. So I think it sort of starts with that perspective. And you asked, like, how I sort of prepare for these events, and how before the show you asked how like my energy and all that. And when it comes to these events, I'm really weird because when I started, I was training for an event, for the little training that I've sort of done. But there was a turning point for me, which actually happened probably about 18 months, 2 years ago, when something switched in my mind. And so I don't like train or prepare for events now specifically. I'm far more interested with being in a state of being steadfast. So what I mean by that is being in a physical, mental, emotional and spiritual condition where if someone turned around to me and said, Adrian, drop your bag, we're going to go and climb this mountain, or we're going to go and jump on a bike and we're going to cycle across Wales, or we're going to do this or that, or we're going to head into this burning building and try and save this cat. I want to be in a position where I can drop my bags and just go, let's go. Like that is my aspiration. And that is not an end goal in and of itself. It's a daily sort of place to get to. And so I don't specifically train for an event. I'm more like all of this really is for my well-being and for my mental health and my physical health. And so on a daily basis, I structure my day, and more specifically, I structure my morning in such a way so that I'm spending the first sort of 3 hours of my day focused purely on me. Like I'm meditating, I'm visualizing, I'm reading, and I'm exercising. And what I find is that come 7 o'clock, I get up at 4 a.m. every day. Come 7 o'clock, I am going into the day a significantly better father, a significantly better partner, a significantly better like entrepreneurial person in business, and just a better person because I have prioritized myself and I've filled my cup up to a degree that I don't feel depleted. I feel full, and yeah, so that's where the energy comes from, and it's also the preparation of these events as well. They're all one.
Yeah. Which is beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. In other words, you actually have found a rhythm that suits you, where really you show your optimal performance on a daily basis. And with that, I don't mean peak performance, but actually optimal performance, where you're actually in your neutral state, but really your batteries are all charged and you're ready to go to live your day on your terms to the fullest. And that is beautiful. That is a fantastic goal. We often aspire to peak performance, to this kind of this Coca-Cola advertisement. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm dancing. Yes, this is my life every single second of the day. And if it is not, then my God, I'm a failure, or I am, you beat yourself up that you're not feeling this saccharine sweet good. And I think that is one of the biggest hurdles nowadays for young people to actually find themselves. We're trying to compare ourselves with the Joneses, and the Joneses are in this case the latest influencer is or pop star is. Surprise, surprise, that 1 in 5 teenagers have got anxiety disorder. So it is. So I think there's a lot to be said about your focus on maintenance, I guess is the word. Yeah. That always sounds so boring. That's where the magic is, because if you don't sharpen your saw, was it not Abraham Lincoln who said if he had 8 hours to chop down a tree, he would spend 6 hours sharpening the saw?
It's a great quote. It's so true.
No. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So how do you sharpen your saw? So you mentioned the 3 hours in the morning. Oh, I want to say something to everyone listening and watching out there. We are all different. For some people, the 4 o'clock in the morning is perfect because it's quiet, they can kick ass, etc. For me, that would be the biggest torture you can do, because that's not how my body rhythm, how my circadian clocks work. I'm actually, when it comes to exercise, I'm far better if I do it in the afternoon, late afternoon. That's my peak time to do sport. My best time to wake up, if I don't have to work, would be about 8 thereabouts. Okay, 7 is okay for my for going to work. But for example, in the past, I woke up at 6 and earlier to do either record a show or do actually something. I pay the price big time. That's simply not my circadian rhythm. And once you can shift them a little bit, there is something natural that fits you. So don't now say, I need to get up at 4 because Adrian is. So that's right. You need to figure out what works for you, but then use the same principles, the same kind of maintenance. How can you work that in? And you're doing 3 hours, and I'm wow, that is beautiful. Most people will not have 3 hours, but you will have 5 minutes. You can do 5 minutes or 3 minutes of sort of just thinking in your head, or maybe not thinking, meditation, doing a breathing exercise, etc., like that. That will go a hell of a long way to start your day in a proper way. And then when you actually realize how good that can feel, you will very soon feel that actually maybe by lunchtime, instead of just sitting around and talking with my coworkers, I might actually find a quiet spot there and do some meditation and some breathing exercises there. Or I might actually do 2-3 minutes of vigorous exercise. So a very short burst of exercise, wow, makes you feel good. And you think, wow, I did some exercise. Hey, that's easy. So it's easy to actually implement it when you really want to. And when someone, maybe like Adrian or like myself, so just nudge you a little bit and say, hey, what you doing now? You could do something now.
It's so accurate what you've just said there, because that's exactly how I started. So I did not start getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and I get asked this question so many times, and my default response is the experience I went through, which is whatever time you get up, just aim to get up 15 minutes earlier. Yeah. If you get up at 7, aim to get up at 2:45. If you get up at 6:30, make it 2:15. It's the principles here that are the important aspect. It's about getting up earlier and using that time to give you a bit of bandwidth to focus on you. Now, that could be as simple as making a cup of coffee, making a cup of tea, sitting down and drinking it without no distractions on your phone, no one pulling on you, sort of family, pets, just it's you time. And you can use that to even, read a couple pages of the book, and very quickly you will start to connect the dots that this feels pretty good. And it feels so good. I'm quite happy to get up another 15 minutes earlier. So I'm now 30 minutes earlier than before, because I want to read 5 pages of the book, and I just maybe just need that, a tiny, a little bit longer with my coffee or something. And that's how it started for me. It was about creating bandwidth, because my life was so out of control and it was so crazy. And because I buy businesses, I had businesses all over the place, basically, and with employees, and it was just so so much drama, and I don't like drama. I like to do things. I don't want to get sort of swept up in drama. And so that's where I started, and it just got further and further back. And to be honest with you, I've not pushed this on myself. I've let it evolve naturally, and I still feel as though that it will go back a little bit further. But that's me, that's individual to me. It's certainly not saying that to everyone. It's the principles that are the key components here. And I can hand on heart say, every night I go to bed genuinely excited about waking up at 4 and doing it again. It's the best part of my day, because I know that and this is how I sort of discovered it. It was when I was on holiday, on vacation with my family, and was on a lovely vacation, but I felt terrible and I couldn't put my finger on it. And it's the day before we came home, and I connected the dots. I was like, it's because I haven't done me. That's why I felt so terrible. I was waking up and I was going into the day albeit, a very lovely environment, but I was going into that environment at level 2, level 3 version of me. Whereas before I was waking up, I was going to work, but I was going into work having done me. So I was going into work as like a level 7, level 8 version. And I preferred that. It's a game changer. It's
Isn't it?
people look at what I've done from the business perspectives, and I always say this is the secret sauce. This is what's enabled me to do that, and what can enable anyone else in their families in their respective careers. So.
Indeed, and that's a beautiful focus, and it's something that we need to train. This kind of attention to detail when it comes to us, because many of us are so people pleasers. We are there for everyone else, and we put everyone else first. And for many women, that is somehow hardwired in them. I need to be there for everyone. And then, I mean, no surprise that in men, women, regardless, you have got levels of burnout that are probably previously unheard of. And this is probably one of the biggest problems, because we do not pay attention to ourselves. We do not put ourselves first. And whilst we sort of talk about the aeroplane and the oxygen coming down, that you have to put it on first before you help someone else, in real life, most of the people that I know don't do that. And I have to constantly hold myself accountable to actually do something, despite the fact that I know it's good for me. Both, I know it cerebrally, mentally. I know it in my heart. I know it in my body. My body tells me, hey, you're an idiot. You're dehydrated to the nth degree. You didn't even pay attention to that. And I have to say, it's a hard journey, but we can do that. We can pay attention. What would you tell someone who's just starting out and says, wow, that all sounds quite good, but I don't even know, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't even know where to start?
I would honestly say, like, start by waking up 15 minutes earlier and give yourself space. Like, you can't do anything when you're being bombarded from every which direction. You have to give yourself some bandwidth, and most importantly, use that bandwidth to focus on you. Don't wake up 15 minutes earlier and jump onto a Facebook or social media. Like, don't, like, it's counterproductive. You might as well just stay asleep. It'd probably be more beneficial for you. But give yourself bandwidth and do it consistently. So do it every single day, like even on the weekends, because I found that when I didn't do it on the weekends, it threw everything out. But you've got to remember what you're doing here. You're giving yourself the gift, like you're giving yourself a gift. So it's not a chore, it's a gift that you're giving yourself. And after it's a remarkably short period of time, when you do that, you start to notice a shift taking place in your mind and in your thoughts, very naturally, very organically. You start to connect that this feels pretty good, and it starts to give you perspective on other areas of your life, and you start to realize how just like out of control certain aspects are, how you really do put yourself last. Even example, I had a conversation this morning with a CEO, a very high-powered CEO of a private equity-backed business, like this massive business, and he was thrilled because he had said something at work where basically he was putting himself first, and it just never ceases to amaze me how little we do that. And so this is what this is about. It's about building bandwidth and putting yourself first. The world's not going to come to an end. Your family's not going to get up and leave you. Like, everything's going to be going as normal. But what you will find is you will start going into your life a slightly better version of you. And if you're going at that better version, then you start to create a better life, in my personal sort of experience.
100% agreed. And that is when you start living intentionally, when you don't just, when not life rides you and you just bob along like a cork on a stormy ocean, but you actually start putting the motor on and turning the rudder into a direction that you want to go. And that is, there's power in that. And whilst your life might have been or might still is full of trauma, full of things that you don't like. Things might, or very likely, be quite hard at the moment due to either climate or social circumstances or COVID or disease, whatever it is. Chances are life is not a bed of roses for you, but you can be a victim and remain there and have the pity party and try to numb yourself with sugar, drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, you name it. Or you could say, well, actually, hang on, who am I? Who do I want to be? And what can I do to get there? And I think you nailed so many points there really, really well. I think this is an ongoing privilege that we have to live intentionally and to be able to reflect about ourselves. And when you give your body and your mind time to reflect, suddenly your body comes up with answers. Might be answers to problems, or it might give you a new idea about a business, might give you a new idea what really upsets you in your life, and you might suddenly see what you have to get rid of in your life in order to drop the anxiety levels. It is so much that you can learn from yourself if you just bloody well stop for a moment and actually just be quiet. And that's so beautiful. So I 100% agree with you. I'm finding that more and more in my life, that when I have got lunch times in between cases in theater, I try to find a quiet spot. I try not to sit with my colleagues in the tea room, which makes me maybe a bit antisocial. But at the same token, I need that time. I actually work better because it allows me to calm down. It allows me to just refocus on my life. And I'm therefore more productive. I'm therefore more focused. My situational awareness remains sharp, whilst otherwise you can get pretty beaten down and you can get pretty just overwhelmed with life. So now it's a bit like an emergency brake that from now and then you have to, okay, too crazy here. My roller coaster, stop that. Stop. Brilliant.
I had a very similar experience this morning, actually. So I was just getting ready to go to the gym. It was about 5:15 this morning, and normally I'm just like, right, I'm off now. But I mean, just to say, this past like 3 or 4 months have been the hardest of my life. Like, there's been so many major things that have happened, and I've been feeling it catching up with me. And this morning, I just felt that I just needed that extra 5 minutes. So I made a cup of tea. I got a couple of oat biscuits, and I sat down on the sofa. I didn't have anything on, like in the living room, downstairs. Everyone else is sleeping, and just had that cup of tea. And I honestly feel like it changed the trajectory of my day in a bigger way than I appreciated at the time, because I felt like, in hindsight, looking back on this morning, if I would have just gone into that like robot mode, then I don't even know if I'd be on this call now. But like I've honestly could have seen myself rescheduling it, but that wasn't the case, and it came from just 5 minutes and a cup of tea and a biscuit, of course. So.
Perfect. And no, you're not having shares in any tea and biscuit company. Maybe you should.
No.
I'm kidding. Oh, Adrian, you're an amazing man. And I think your lessons are they're gold nuggets. Honestly, I like them very much. So who is Adrian Knight going to be in a year's time? Who do you want to be when you grow up?
I still don't know that. I still don't know that question. I remember one of my friends at university saying, I'm the type of person who would be 40 years old and still won't know what they want to do with their life. And I've just turned 38, and I can see that coming to fruition. I honestly don't know. Right now, this past year, my last acquisition, which I acquired nearly a year ago, has been very hands-on, been very intense, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, but equally, I'm just in the process of exiting that business. I'm sort of nearly there, and I'm looking forward to having a bit of a, not downtime, because it's not in my nature to stop and do nothing, but to switch gears slightly and I think to focus more on other people than on myself. I feel very sort of fulfilled personally from largely from what I do each morning that fills me up, and it's just pushed my focus out onto others a lot more. So I'm quite excited to see where that goes, like where that goes to. I don't really know at this stage, other than I don't need to know. I like we just roll with things. And if anyone would have said this time last year, I'd be, doing some of the endurance events that I'm doing and I'm due to be doing next year, wouldn't have believed it. And so, why set the expectations?
Ooh, nice. But then again, you can say that because you are actually working on maintenance. Because of that, you are living in the moment, and you can recognize opportunities when they arise. And you have proven to yourself that you've got a track record, that you can achieve more than you believe. And therefore, I think this makes you a prime candidate to recognize an opportunity in a business, to actually think, okay, this sounds tempting. Let's do the maths. Let's actually make sure that the numbers are all correct. And then, okay, how do we deal with any problems arising? Your body and your mind are, I think, in a prime position to actually answer the questions in the best possible way, to find 2 free exit points to say, okay, I'll do that, and with that business, and if that doesn't work, then that, but whatever I do, I will make money out of it. These are all things that your mind is enjoying to play around with, compared with someone who's trudging through life and who is basically running on low batteries constantly. They might have the same opportunities. They will certainly have the same amount of weeks. They will have the same amount of seconds in a day, but they will certainly not be able to make the most out of it. And I think therefore, Adrian, I'm so grateful that you encourage me today to live more intentionally. And I hope that applies to everyone out there who is listening and viewing. Our life is limited on this planet, but we can do so much about it. We can extend that life a little bit. We can certainly extend our health life or health span significantly. At the lifespan, we can also, if you know what you're doing. But all the basic principles we have outlined here in this talk. I'm very, very grateful, Adrian. Thank you so much for coming onto my show and for rattling my cage a bit. I like that.
Honestly, thank you so much for having me, and it's been a wonderful conversation. And you've very, very quickly gone straight to the heart and hit the nail on the head on a few points. And there's a quote sort of coming through my mind as you were saying there, which was a Muhammad Ali quote, and I think this ties in very nicely with our posters, which is don't count the days, but make the days count. And I just love that. I think it's so relevant. But also just to say as well, with that, the clarity and the opportunities and stuff like that. So it's not just work. And what I've discovered is that when you are investing that bit of time in yourself each day, you're turning up to your day as a higher version of you, which does give you more clarity and it gives you more confidence. And so I found that I've managed to solve problems in other areas of my life that have been with me for a while, and I've seen this happen for other people as well. It's not just like the sort of commercial success; it's life success, and it all stems from putting yourself first. So I just want to say that because I just feel it's so relevant. But thank you.
You're so right. Oh, Adrian, you're an amazing man. Thank you so much for being a guest in my show. And you guys out there, come on, take the bull by its horns and live with passion. Look after yourselves. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.